The morning sun crept slowly over the tin roofs of San Miguel village, painting the sky in shades of gold and gray. Inside a small wooden house stood Mang Lito, an old carpenter with hands hardened by decades of labor. His workshop was nothing more than a corner of his home, filled with the scent of sawdust, worn tools, and the quiet rhythm of a man who never gave up. For 50 years, Mang Lito built chairs, tables, and cabinets for neighbors who often paid him with rice or gratitude. Money was rare, but peace lived in his heart. His wife, ailing Rosa, often sat by the window, her cough soft yet constant, as she watched him shape wood into life. They had no children, but the village kids treated them as family. They called him a Tete Lito, and he always had a smile for them, even on the hungriest days. But one dark afternoon, the skies broke open. Heavy rain poured for days, flooding the village. Mang Lito's small house trembled under the storm's rage. By morning, half the roof was gone, and his tools, his only source of living, were drenched and rusted. He stared at the ruins, his heart sinking like a stone. For the first time, he sat still, unable to move. Ailing Rosa placed her frail hand on his arm and whispered, "You've built so many homes. Hi, full. You can build ours again." But he only nodded silently. That night, he prayed for strength, not for wealth, but for the courage to start again. His prayer was quiet, but it carried deep into the night air. In the morning, the children arrived with wood scraps and rusty nails. "Atate will help you fix it." Mang Lito's lips trembled. Hope, small, shy, but alive, returned. The storm had taken his tools, but it could not take his spirit. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the broken roof, landing on Mang Lito's face. He opened his eyes to the sound of children's laughter outside. When he stepped out, he found a small crowd of kids waiting, holding pieces of old wood, bent nails, and hammers borrowed from their fathers. "Atate, we're here to help," said little Arman, the boldest of them all. Mang Lito's throat tightened. He wanted to protest, to tell them that this wasn't their burden to carry, but their eyes were full of determination. So instead, he smiled. "All right then," he said softly. "Let's build something beautiful." Together, they cleared the mud from the floor and started repairing the walls. The old man guided their small hands, teaching them how to measure, how to sand, how to listen to the wood. It was slow, messy work, but the laughter that filled the air made the hours pass quickly. By sunset, a part of the workshop stood again. It wasn't perfect, but it was alive. As the children left, Armin turned back and said, "You always fix things for us, Tase. Now it's our turn." When the last of them disappeared down the dusty path, Mang Lito sat on a wooden crate, exhausted but smiling. His wife, ailing Rosa, handed him a cup of rice porridge. "See ya," she said, her voice gentle. "You taught them more than carpentry. You taught them more than carpentry. You taught them kindness." That night, as he looked at his repaired walls and drying tools, a new thought stirred in his heart. Maybe, he thought, his gift wasn't just building furniture. It was building people, teaching others to believe in work, in care, in hope. He closed his eyes and imagined the workshop alive again, the sound of chisels, the smell of pine, the soft hum of life returning. Tomorrow, he decided he would make something new. Not for money, but as a thank you to the children who reminded him that even broken hands can build miracles. And for the first time in a long while, Mang Lito slept peacefully. Weeks passed, and Mang Lito's workshop began to look alive again. The repaired walls stood firm, and the sound of hammering echoed through the narrow streets of San Miguel. Each morning, he worked from dawn till dusk, his hands moving with new energy, his heart lighter than it had been in years. He decided to carve something special, a gift for the children who had helped him rebuild. After much thought, he began shaping a small wooden angel from a piece of mahogany he had been saving for years. Each curve, each feather was carved with care. It wasn't just wood to him. It was gratitude made visible. When the angel was finished, it looked as if it might take flight. Mang Lito placed it outside his workshop window for everyone to see. Word spread quickly through the village. People came by to admire the figure, its simple beauty glowing in the morning light. Even the mayor stopped to compliment it. One afternoon, a woman from the city visited the village. She was an art teacher named Ms. Rivera, looking for handmade crafts to display in an exhibit. When she saw the angel, she was speechless. "Who made this?" she asked. Mang Lito, shy and humble, simply said, "An old man with a thankful heart." Ms. Rivera smiled. "This deserves to be seen by the world." At first, he hesitated. He had never imagined his work leaving the village. But after much persuasion, he agreed to let her take the angel to the city. Days later, news reached the village. The angel had won an award at the exhibit. It was praised as a masterpiece of humility and faith. He didn't boast or celebrate. Instead, he walked to his workshop, placed his rough hands on the table, and whispered a thank you. That night, as the stars shimmered above the small village, the wooden angel stood quietly by the window, watching over the man who had carved hope out of hardship. The day began with the sound of roosters crowing and neighbors knocking at Mang Lito's door. Word had spread. He had been invited to the city to attend the art exhibit where his wooden angel had won. It would be his first trip beyond their small village in over 30 years. Ailing Rosa packed his old woven bag with a change of clothes, rice cakes, and a wooden cross he had carved long ago. "For luck," she said with a smile, though her eyes glistened with pride. When the bus arrived, half the village came to see him off. Children waved banners made from cardboard, shouting, "A good luck, Tate Lito." He waved back, shyly tucking his calloused hands into his pockets. As the bus rumbled away, he stared out the window, watching the rice fields blur into the horizon. The city was a storm of light and noise. Tall buildings stretched into the clouds, and the air smelled of gasoline and coffee. Mang Lito clutched his bag tightly, feeling both amazed and overwhelmed. Ms. Rivera greeted him at the terminal, her smile warm and welcoming. At the exhibit hall, he stopped in his tracks. There, in a glass case under bright lights, stood his wooden angel. A small plaque read, "The wooden angel crafted by Mang Lito, carpenter of San Miguel." People stood around it, taking pictures and whispering in admiration. One man said, "You can feel the emotion in every carving." Mang Lito's eyes filled with tears. Never had he imagined his humble work would be seen by strangers, much less honored. When he stepped forward, Ms. Rivera announced, "Everyone, this is the artist." He bowed his head and said softly, "I am no artist, just a man who builds with love." That night, as he returned to his small hotel room, he looked at his hands, old, scarred, trembling, and whispered, maybe these hands were never poor after all. The morning after the exhibit, Mang Lito took the early bus home. The city's tall buildings faded behind him, replaced once again by the quiet rice fields and soft mountain air. As the bus rolled into San Miguel, he saw a crowd waiting by the roadside, neighbors, friends, and children waving frantically. They had made a small banner that read, "Welcome home, Tate Lito, our pride." Tears filled his eyes as he stepped off the bus. Ailing Rosa stood near the front, leaning on a cane, smiling through her frailness. "You did it," she whispered as he embraced her gently. You showed them what humble hands can do. The whole village celebrated that night. There was laughter, music, and shared food under strings of flickering bulbs. Mang Lito sat quietly at the edge of the gathering, watching everyone enjoy themselves. The children performed a little play about a carpenter who never gave up, ending with a wooden angel that saved the village. He laughed softly, his heart full and warm. But as the days passed, ailing Rosa's health began to decline. She grew weaker with every sunrise. He nodded, his voice trembling, "I promise." When she closed her eyes for the last time, the house felt unbearably silent. For weeks, Mang Lito could not bring himself to work. But one morning, he noticed the children waiting outside his workshop, holding chisels and sandpaper. "Hatade," Armin said softly, "you promised to teach us." And so he did. The sound of carving filled the air once more, steady, rhythmic, alive. Together they built toys, benches, and dreams. Years later, villagers would still speak of Mang Lito, the old carpenter whose love shaped more than wood, it shaped hearts. And in the corner of his workshop, the wooden angel still stood, wings outstretched, guarding the place where hope was carved by hand.